Hello, friends. This is Confessions with Amy, and I'm glad you're visiting my channel. Here we share new confessions every day.
I never thought that I could be fired a week before retirement. In my 32 years at Midwest Solutions, I've seen a lot of things: crises, changes, management changes, competitors coming and going. But I always believed that if I worked honestly and hard, I wouldn't be betrayed. I got a call yesterday morning from James Carroll, my boss. His face was cold and unyielding, without a trace of sympathy. "Budget constraints," he said. "Here is the agreement. Sign it by tomorrow, or you'll leave without payment." I stared at the papers in his hands and couldn't believe it. 7 days until retirement, and now I feel like I've been thrown on the sidelines. The whole office felt strange to me. Colleagues looked on with pity or surprise, but no one approached. It was a low blow, and I felt cheated. I sat at the window of my office, looking out at the streets of Chicago, people rushing about their business, and thought, why me? Why is that? She recalled working on projects at night, protecting the company from crises, and supporting young colleagues. I've given my whole life to this job, and now, this? I didn't sign the contract that night. Instead, I picked up the phone and called someone I trusted. I knew that this call could change everything. I wasn't going to give up. My story isn't over yet. In the morning, I woke up with a heavy feeling in my heart. The letter of resignation lay on the kitchen table like a cold verdict. During the night, I couldn't stop thinking, should I sign or not? If I sign it, I'll get at least some compensation. I can leave with honor, even if ahead of time. If not, I'll be left with nothing. No severance pay, no pension. But how can you sign when you've invested in this company all your life? When was every day here a part of me? All day at work, I tried to act normal, but my stomach was churning. My colleagues looked at me with pity, but no one could understand what was going on in my soul. At lunchtime, I went outside and walked to the park across the street. I looked at the children playing and thought, I've been fighting for so many years, and now who's fighting for me? When I got back, I opened the contract again and reread it. There were all the legal details, but for me it was just a knife in the back. I realized I couldn't just give up. That evening, I picked up the phone and dialed the number of an old friend and former colleague who now works in another city, in a large company. "Hi, this is Margaret. I need your help. I can't just leave. It's unfair." His voice was shaky, but his determination was stronger. He listened carefully and promised to help. At that moment, I realized that this was just the beginning. I sat down in a chair, picked up the phone and thought for a long time about who to call. Names flashed through my mind: colleagues I'd once worked alongside, friends I'd trusted. In the end, I dialed the number I kept in reserve in case of serious problems. The voice on the other end of the line was familiar and warm, like an oasis in the desert. It was Thomas, a man with whom I had spent years working together and trusting. "Margaret? What is it?" he asked. "Everything okay?" "No, Tom," I said softly, feeling a wave of emotion rise inside me. "I'm getting fired. A week before retirement. Without warning. No choice." He listened intently, and I told him everything that had happened: the meeting with James, the contract to sign, the pressure and complete indifference of the management. "That's not fair," Tom said. "And it can be stopped." We agreed that he would help me check the company's financial statements and look for possible violations that could be exploited. I knew I was taking a step into the unknown, but I couldn't just keep quiet. That night, when the others were leaving for home, I stayed in the office late, typing in paperwork, sending out emails, and collecting anything that might help. I felt that this one call could change not only my fate, but also the fate of the company and those who decided to betray me. I didn't know it was going to be easy, but I was ready to fight. The day after I called, Thomas sent me the first batch of documents, the company's financial statements and internal correspondence for the past 6 months. I sat in my apartment in Chicago and flipped through the pages, feeling a chill run down my spine. There were hints of hidden expenses, unexplained transfers, and, worst of all, attempts to hide serious losses from senior management. My suspicions, the ones I'd spent years trying to convey to my superiors, were beginning to be confirmed. The more I read, the more I realized that getting fired was just the tip of the iceberg. My boss and his entourage may have been trying to cover up a major financial scandal, and I was simply dismissed as an inconvenient witness. My heart ached with anger and resentment, but I knew I didn't need to panic right now. You need to act wisely. I called several close colleagues I trusted and told them about the situation. They supported me, promised to be there for me. Together, we began collecting evidence and forming action plans. Each new fact made me believe that justice was possible. There was a spark of hope in my soul, a spark that I had long cherished, and which now could light up this whole dark story. The morning began with a heavy strain. I woke up with the feeling that I had not only my own destiny on my shoulders, but also the responsibility for all those who once believed in me. Today I decided, I will no longer just be a victim of circumstances. All my life I've been used to order and justice. But now, with everything hanging in the balance, I realized that justice is not just a word, but a struggle that requires strength and courage. Thomas and I agreed to meet at a small cafe near my house. He brought new documents, correspondence that was obtained from internal sources, and accounting reports. There was everything: attempts to hide losses, falsification of data, and deliberate distortion of the real state of the company. As I listened to his explanation, I felt my resolve grow. It wasn't just paperwork, it was an opportunity to show everyone that I can't be so easily erased from history. I started by contacting several key witnesses, colleagues who, like me, were loyal to the company but were afraid to speak out. With each conversation, I felt supported and understood. We were united in this. But it wasn't an easy fight. I had to meet with lawyers, study complex financial documents, and sometimes stay up late at the computer. I felt tired and disappointed, but I knew I couldn't back down. One evening, while analyzing another report, I discovered an important detail: a transaction that did not match the official records. This could be the key to unlocking the whole scheme. I wrote down all the data, prepared a report, and sent it to Thomas's office. He promised that we would hand the case over to the inspection authorities. At that moment, I realized that I was no longer just a laid-off employee. I became the voice of truth, the person who can change everything. The pain of my betrayal was still there, but with it grew a power that would make anyone who thought I was just going to disappear hear me. After I sent the report with the detected violations, the real test began. My decision to engage in an open fight provoked a flurry of reactions, not only from the company, but also from within myself. Everything has changed in the Midwest Solutions office. James Carroll, my former boss, was suddenly cold and distant, as if I'd turned into an enemy. I was viewed with suspicion and even open hostility. Some colleagues stopped talking to me, and those who supported me tried to keep a low profile, fearing the consequences. I came to work every morning like I was on a battlefield. There were whispers in the corridors behind my back, and the phone was often silent. People were afraid to contact me. But at the same time, I got unexpected support. Several senior employees who were also unhappy with the situation began to openly express their solidarity. They gave me valuable advice and helped me gather additional evidence. My family was there, too. My husband Jack supported me as best he could, reminding me that I wasn't alone and that the truth was on our side. Their faith gave them the strength to go further. Together with Thomas, we started preparing an official statement for the regulatory authorities. It was a delicate and difficult job. It was necessary not just to bring charges, but to collect ironclad evidence that could not be challenged. Sometimes I felt on edge: sleepless nights, constant stress, and the fear of losing everything. But deep down, I knew that if I backed down, I would betray not only myself, but all those who hoped for justice. On one of these difficult days, I received a letter from one of the former top managers, who decided to come out and tell me everything he knows. It was a significant event, a confirmation that my call really started a chain of changes. I looked in the mirror and saw a woman, tired but determined. It was me, Margaret Hunter, who doesn't give up. The pressure on me grew with each passing day, but so did my resolve. When the first evidence fell into the hands of the inspection authorities, official investigations began. I remember the day I received a call from the regulator's office. Their voices were serious and respectful. Someone was finally listening. They explained to me that my materials caused a chain of checks, and now the case is taken under the control of higher authorities. The company started to panic. James Carroll stopped showing up at work, and there was more and more talk around me about corruption, financial fraud, and attempts to hide real losses. My dismissal was no longer a secret, it was now a huge scandal. My colleagues, who had previously been afraid to support me, began to approach cautiously. Many admitted that they also knew about dirty deeds, but were afraid of the consequences. Their confessions were like a breath of fresh air, like confirmation that I wasn't alone. In parallel with the investigation, a media campaign was launched. Journalists became interested in the story of a woman who was abandoned on the eve of retirement after 32 years of service. Interviews, articles, discussions, I was ready for this attention, because I knew that the truth had to come out. My husband Jack and the kids supported me on a daily basis. They saw how hard this fight was for me and tried to keep me afloat. I felt that I had made the right choice, even though the path was difficult and thorny. At that moment, when everything seemed hopeless, I realized that my life and the fate of the company had changed forever. I became not just a former employee, but a symbol of the struggle for justice. And that was just the beginning. It's been a few months since my story blew up the walls of Midwest Solutions. The regulators' investigation revealed serious violations, fraud, abuse of power. James Carroll and several of his closest associates were fired, and some received lawsuits. For me, this was not just a victory, it was the restoration of justice that I had been waiting for so long. The company launched reforms, and new leaders promised to change the corporate culture, emphasize honesty and respect for employees. My name became known far beyond the office. I received letters and calls from people who were inspired by my story, supported me, and said thank you for your courage. I found a new job myself as an ethics and corporate responsibility consultant. Now I can use my experience to help others avoid such situations. Looking back, I realized that this heavy blow of fate was the beginning of something bigger. I lost 32 years in the company, but I didn't lose myself. Life always presents challenges, but what matters is how we respond to them. I answered with pride and strength. A new dawn has arrived, and I am ready to face it with an open heart.